This past summer, I got to visit Walt Disney World for my first time since I was a little kid and my first time as a theme park enthusiast. I spent 2 days here, my parents spent 4, but because I had to squeeze in all the other parks in Florida, I didn't have as much time as they did. But I still thought that between my 2 days at Disney World, I got to ride virtually everything that I wanted to experience very bad. Day 1 consisted of Hollywood Studios and Epcot, and Day 2 was Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom. Let me start off by saying that all 4 of these parks are absolutely phenomenal. If you'd like to hear more about them, I'd strongly recommend taking a look at my Ranking Every US Disney Theme Parks video. A link to that will be in the description. Rather than discussing the parks though, today we'll be taking a look at my top 25 favorite rides that you can find at Disney World. They really do have some amazing stuff here, and so ranking my top 25 favorites made me want to pull my hair out of my head. But at last, I think I have a pretty accurate ranking that I've decided on, so I hope you guys enjoy the list. Per usual, this is going to be my personal opinion, so if you've been to Walt Disney World before, I'd love to see your rankings down in the comments. I should also mention that there are quite a few honorable mentions that didn't make the cut, not because they weren't good enough, but because I didn't ride them for one reason or another. Firstly, Dinosaur at Animal Kingdom looked pretty fun, but I unfortunately didn't have the time to experience it. The same thing can be said about Mission Space at Epcot, but that was also partially because I didn't want to feel sick after riding. Then you have rides like Kilimanjaro Safari and Cali River Rapids, which I haven't ridden since I was a little kid, so putting them on here would be straight up unfair. And lastly, Ratatouille at Epcot, Tron at Magic Kingdom, and Guardians of the Galaxy at Epcot all weren't open at the time of my visit. I look forward to one day returning to the resort and get on all these awesome rides as well, but for the time being, I'm just grateful that I got to experience the following 25 rides on this list. So without further ado, these are my top 25 favorite rides at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Number 25, Peter Pan's Flight at Magic Kingdom. Just a heads up, I might compare a lot of these rides to similar attractions at the Disney parks in California, and Peter Pan is no exception. Luckily for this park, I thought Peter Pan here was a whole lot better than the one at Disneyland. I've always said that the California version is too short and lackluster, but the Florida one is improved upon significantly. There are 2 scenes on this ride in particular that I thought were really cool that don't exist on the Disneyland version at all. So sure, if the wait time gets long enough, which this thing sure does attract a long wait time sometimes, then I'd say it's not a must-do. But if you're kind of brushing it off because the California one has the reputation that it does, I'd still give this one a shot for sure. Number 24, Grand Fiesta Tour at Epcot. I'm not gonna lie, I thought a lot of this ride was kinda stupid and rather underwhelming, which may have partially been because I knew nothing about the ride other than the ending. Which, speaking of, the 3 caballeros are very well done. I love those animatronics at the end, and the song they play is incredibly catchy in my opinion. Also, the beginning with the pyramids and stuff is pretty cool, and I got Pirates of the Caribbean vibes being right alongside a restaurant on a boat ride. But in general, this is a fine dark ride. Like, I didn't love it, but I would ride it again for that ending. Number 23, Slinky Dog Dash at Disney's Hollywood Studios. As a part of the new for 2018 Toy Story Land, Disney decided to build Hollywood Studios' second ever roller coaster. Themed to Slinky Dog, this Mock Rides family launch coaster is a fun ride with excellent theming, but man is it tame. There are numerous sections of this attraction where you are going through hills so slowly that you feel like you might valley. But I get the appeal. Slinky Dog Dash is purposely meant to be a family ride that just about anyone can experience. After all, if it were any more intense, I probably wouldn't have gotten my whole family to ride it. My favorite part of the ride actually occurs at the end of the layout and is where Wheezy sings the good old You Have a Friend in Me track. It's a great nod to the movies, and it's something I absolutely love to see. So while I enjoyed the attraction overall, I thought one ride on it was enough to just gather my overall thoughts. I didn't need more than that. Number 22, Journey into Imagination with Figment at Epcot. To this day, this is one of the weirdest and most hilarious rides I've ever ridden. This slow-moving dark ride is themed to the one and only Figment, and along with the character, it sure does fit the theme of the definition behind the word Figment. Quote, a thing that someone believes to be real but that exists only in their imagination. Using this imagination is exactly what this ride is all about. But while I actually think the theme is kind of clever, the ride is clearly half-assed. Like, it's not advanced at all, none of the technology making up the ride is super modern, and so the ride itself isn't impressive by any means. But I'm telling you, I have never laughed harder on any ride in my life than on Figment. I don't know exactly what it was, but I think some of the scenes were just so bad that they were good. And combine that with the uplifting imagination theme, and you guys just need to give this a spin. It's so funny. I really don't think you will regret it because Figment is the weirdest, most acid trip ride I've ever seen in my life. Number 21, Rockin' Roller Coaster at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty underwhelmed by this ride. What it is a Vekoma LSM launch coaster with 3 inversions. Basically think of it as an Aerosmith version of Flight of Fear at the Cedar Fair parks. In other words, part of the fun that comes with this ride is the onboard audio. But for me, it wasn't playing loud enough at all, so it kind of gave a lack of atmosphere, I thought. I don't know if it's like this all the time, but nonetheless it wasn't the best look. Tie that in with a generally forceless layout, and I don't know, Rockin' Roller Coaster just didn't do it for me, I guess. I will say, for a Vekoma looper, I was stunned by how smooth it was running. But I guess Disney is able to work their magic in more ways than one sometimes, that probably explains why. Now, as much as it might seem like I'm bashing the ride experience, I do still think it's an enjoyable launch coaster. But this ride does have a pretty significant following of people who really love it, so I guess I was just expecting a bit more. Let me know down in the comments if you feel the same way, or if you're like most people and love this ride. Number 20, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Magic Kingdom. Basically, the polar opposite scenario of what happened with me and Rockin' Roller Coaster happened with Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. In other words, this coaster gets a good amount of hate, even if it is usually amongst roller coaster enthusiasts in particular, but when I rode Seven Dwarfs, I thought it was a great time. I thought it tracked really cool for me since I was riding alone in my row. Because of the rocking seats that this ride has, I was swaying side to side quite a little bit. But if that didn't amplify the ride experience, I'll tell you what did. The dark ride segment in the middle of this ride is so cool. I love all the enchanting visuals with all the dwarves as your seats rock side to side. But then comes the lift hill where you hear the classic hi-ho track, which really sets the tone of this ride. I think the reason this coaster gets its fair share of hate must be because it's pretty tame. But to be honest, I thought Slinky Dog Dash was even tamer, and that's a launch coaster, so that's saying something. So if you're just an avid Disney Parks fan who's able to enjoy just about anything, of course I'd recommend Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I wouldn't really listen to the stereotypes. Number 19, Star Tours The Adventures Continues at Disney's Hollywood Studios. My stepfather Hugh has an odd opinion of putting this in his top 3 favorite rides at Disney World, and because his opinion is so bad, it makes me want to put this ride lower on this list. You hear that, Hugh? I know you're watching. Jokes aside, Star Tours is actually a pretty great ride, and I think the biggest reason as to why is because it's freaking hilarious. The jokes that the characters make are so cheesy but so good, and it leaves me laughing every time. As well as that, the motion simulator experience feels pretty real, though I do think the screen quality needs an update. That seems to be a problem with many motion simulators out there. But overall, Star Tours is a ride that's really grown on me over the years. I used to not be a fan of it, but the more I rode it and appreciated the ride's comedy and animatronics, the more I did really like it. Number 18, Toy Story Midway Mania at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I think I definitely overrated this ride quite a bit in my Disneyland video. Like, I'm sorry, but it's not better than Space Mountain. But in terms of my Florida rankings, I think I have a much more accurate placement for it. I still think it's a great ride, and it's as addictive as ever, but to be honest, I think I like the Florida one even more than the California one. There were many minor details that amplified the experience in my opinion, so I actually came off pretty impressed. With that said, they are more or less the same and are both just solid all around. I don't think you can make a shooting dark ride much more entertaining than Toy Story Midway Mania. Number 17, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Magic Kingdom. To be honest, the Disneyland Big Thunder Mountain doesn't really do it for me anymore. I think I've gotten to the point where I've just ridden it so many times that it isn't too entertaining. I mention this because it was great getting to experience a new and interesting version of a ride I'm so keen to experiencing. This Thunder Mountain to me feels much more aggressive than the one in California. It has many of the same traits as that coaster, but this one doesn't track as smooth and feels generally more out of control, which I really liked. I think it's a great ride for just about any member of the family because it isn't too intense, but man is this attraction simply loads of fun. Number 16, Frozen Ever After at Epcot. Going in, this was a ride I had really high hopes for because I actually really enjoyed the Frozen films and was expecting a cohesive story similar to the movies. Unfortunately, the ride lacked a plotline and was instead just kind of a showcase of the character, scenes, and etc. Now I will say that animatronics and scenes were incredibly well done and were so beautiful, so I have no complaints there. But I do wish there was a bit more to this ride because I think they had a lot of potential in using a theme this popular. I did still have a great time riding it though, and that's why it's all the way at number 16 on this list. Regardless of my nitpicks, I think you absolutely should check out this dark ride. Number 15, Spaceship Earth at Epcot. This classic Omnimover dark ride is one of the few Disney World rides that I rode and it actually had flashbacks to when I was a little kid. Something about it was so nostalgic to me, and I think part of the reason is because it's seriously immersive. Part of that is thanks to the sheer length of the attraction, clocking in at over 15 minutes in duration. I do sort of think that it might be a little bit too long for its own good because a lot of Spaceship Earth feels pretty empty and meaningless. But regardless, I think it's a super unique ride with a cool theme, and if you're into long immersive experiences, definitely give it a shot. Number 14, Carousel of Progress at Magic Kingdom. While more of a show than a ride, I still want to include it in this video because I was pretty blown away by this attraction. Let me tell you, I knew not a single thing about this ride going in, and I'm pretty sure when I heard the name, I thought it would be like a themed carousel or something. But no, it wasn't a carousel at all. It was a show slash dark ride slash rotating theater with scenes from different eras of human civilization. And basically, you get to see how technology has developed. It's pretty amazing. Of course, the cherry on top to this experience is the song that all the characters sing at the end of each scene. It's a great big beautiful tomorrow. It's such an uplifting and inspiring message. So overall, the experience really left me impressed. I loved this thing. Number 13, Expedition Everest at Disney's Animal Kingdom. The most themed roller coaster at Walt Disney World, I'd argue, is encompassed by a replica Mount Everest, and it is beautiful. The ride also has many tricks up its sleeve, including a backward section, a switch track, an indoor portion in the dark, and a Yeti animatronic. It's also fairly intense for a Disney coaster, as parts of the ride actually pull some pretty impressive positive G-forces. Big ups to Vekoma for coming up with something like this because it is absolutely some of the company's best work in the US. It's a ride that I don't know anyone who just doesn't love it. It's an icon. Number 12, Space Mountain at Magic Kingdom. While most would argue that Expedition Everest is Disney World's best roller coaster, I was kinda left speechless by Space Mountain. Being used to the version in California, I was expecting an experience that would be more or less similar, but no, this one felt completely more intense and more like Matterhorn if anything. Maybe I should have saw this coming because when I saw the single file seating, that already sparked some curiosity. But literally, this ride feels like Matterhorn at Disneyland, just like in the darkness where you can't see anything coming. And even better, parts of this ride have some ridiculous ejector airtime that you also do not see coming. Combine that with some awesome theming and you've got a seriously fantastic family roller coaster. With that said, is this really a family ride? Because I'm not so sure after riding it, at least on the Omega side. Whatever it is though, you be the judge for yourself. All I know is that I was absolutely blown away by this attraction. Number 11, Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom. I had a feeling I would love this ride if it were anything like the Disneyland Haunted Mansion, and sure enough, they were pretty much the same, so of course I loved it. I think the theme is totally awesome and timeless, and the musical scores really set the tone of the ride. The attraction is an Omnimover style dark ride, but where you ride in doom buggies and encounter various pieces of theming and audio animatronics. But these things have to be more ghost-like, so the ride has many illusions that are possible thanks to reflections, lighting, you get the point. Haunted Mansion is just one of those rides that everyone at the Disney parks always seem to love, and after riding it so many times over the years, I can completely understand the hype. Number 10, Navi River Journey at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Going in, I had heard good things about this gorgeous boat ride, but I walked away thinking it was kind of amazing. Perhaps it's too often overshadowed by its next door neighbor Flight of Passage, but I think Navi River Journey is the perfect complement in making the World of Avatar section so complete. I cannot stress enough how beautiful this ride is. Like, it's got to be one of the most immersive attractions I've ever experienced, which is why I think it fits perfect into Pandora. But I think what really puts this ride over the top for me is the animatronic at the end, who goes by the name Big Toe. This guy might be the single greatest animatronic I've seen on any Disney attraction in my life. Dare I say, it also might be the greatest animatronic I've seen on any dark ride in my life. Its movements are so incredibly precise, making it look really lifelike. So overall, I know Navi River Journey gets its fair share of nitpicks from people saying it's too short, that it gets overshadowed, etc., but I think my expectations were drastically exceeded coming off this thing. It was such a memorable experience, honestly one of the most memorable rides in the resort in my opinion. Number 9, Pirates of the Caribbean at Magic Kingdom. Possibly the most well-known Disney dark ride in history has to be Pirates, one of the best boat rides in the world. Going in, I didn't know what differences there would be to the one in California, so I was rather shocked to see that it was only half the ride length. Now, part of me is fine with it because at times it does seem like the one in Disneyland has more ride time than it knows what to do with. But on the contrary, that is a big player in making that version much more immersive than this one. I do think that they're nearly on par in quality, but there are some things that the Disneyland Pirates of the Caribbean does noticeably better than this one. What I do appreciate is that Disney World put the most prominent sections of that version into this one, so it doesn't feel all too lacking. Comparisons aside, I still think this ride is amazing, and it's easily one of the greatest Disney classics, so I think you should be able to enjoy it nonetheless. Number 8, Soaring Around the World at Epcot. I know many of you won't have Soarin' this high on your list, but I have a sentimental attachment to this ride. As a guy who desires to travel the world, something about seeing the sights of all these different countries with the emotional but incredible soundtrack just touches my heart. In a way, it almost feels inspirational, but at the same time feels real due to the smells, views, and sensation of flight. This is a ride that I'm so grateful to have ridden in Florida, but I'm even more grateful to have here in California. I think for as long as I'm alive, there's always going to be a special place in my heart for Soarin' Around the World. Number 7, Test Track at Epcot. My personal favorite attraction at Epcot was sort of unexpected, to be honest. All I've ever heard about this thing is that it's a half-assed version of Radiator Springs Racers at California Adventure, but I don't really think so at all. The fact that matters is that they have very different themes and are therefore very different experiences. The ride is split up into two halves, the indoor portion and the outdoor portion. The former is basically where you test your vehicle's capabilities, and the latter is where you put all of its strengths together and haul ass. And speaking of hauling ass, Test Track is the fastest ride in all of Walt Disney World, clocking in at 65 miles per hour. But to be honest, it feels much faster than that. When you're going at your max speeds on this ride, it actually makes your cheeks flap from how fast you're going. It is awesome. So sure, it might not be as good as Cars, but it sure is more intense, and it's still an equally as complete package in my opinion. Number 6, Splash Mountain at Magic Kingdom. You guys know I obsess over the Splash Mountain at Disneyland, as it's one of my all-time favorite rides in the entire world. And while I didn't think quite as highly for the Florida version, I still thought it was Magic Kingdom's best attraction and one of the resort's most memorable. The endless series of animatronics are all amazing, as are the individual scenes that do sort of conduct a story if you pay close attention. Plus the soundtracks are all incredible, and the drop at the end is the perfect climax to this ride. So while I can't say Splash Mountain here is one of my favorite rides ever like it is in California, I think it's got a lot going for it nonetheless, and it's highly recommended to ride before it's gone for good. Still not happy about that, Disney. Number 5, Twilight Zone Tower of Terror at Disney's Hollywood Studios. For the longest time now, I've been used to Guardians of the Galaxy over at California Adventure after that was converted from Tower of Terror. And while I still love that ride, the original was always my preferred ride choice, which in this case is a good thing because Florida has not changed theirs yet. I just think this theme is so much crazier and so much more fitting for the type of ride that this is. The sequence of drops, while short, pack in some immaculate sustained ejector airtime, and the dark ride sections are a great build-up to these drops as well. I thought it was a real treat getting to ride the OG Tower of Terror after years without it because man was it a burst of nostalgia. Number 4, Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Opening in mid-2019, Smugglers Run was the first ride to open in the park's new and incredible Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And despite the fact that it has since been overshadowed by a ride that shall not yet be named, I still find it to be pretty freaking incredible. The motion simulator holds 6 people in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, aka 2 engineers, 2 gunners, and 2 pilots. Let me just say, the pilot position is easily the best and is what pulls Smugglers Run up into the top 5 on this list. Being able to control the ship and even jump to light speed is incredible, but even if you're an engineer or gunner, this ride is quite interactive. I'd even go as far as to say that this is the most interactive ride in the world when you consider the 3 different ride positions and how they all interact with one another. As with many other rides on this list, I do have an identical version of this attraction at Disneyland, so riding it here didn't blow my mind or anything. But I will say, if it's your first time riding Smugglers Run and you hit the jackpot of getting pilot, you are going to have the time of your life, I assure you. Number 3, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Hollywood Studios' newest attraction amongst their rapid growth is one of the most impressive trackless dark rides in the world. The ride was the first attraction in the world to even be themed to Mickey Mouse, which I'd say really lives up to the immensely popular cartoon character. The experience feels like an acid trip, as anything that can go wrong basically does go wrong. First, your cars disconnect from Goofy's train accidentally, and Mickey and Minnie begin chasing after the lost car. Throughout the ride, there are many surprises and detours that you will encounter in the universe of Mickey Mouse, with my favorite being the conga scene conducted by Daisy in the dance studio. With all the chaos that's going on, it's awesome that there's such a hilarious break to the action midway through. I think that's what I love so much about this ride though, there's always something you're doing and something that's going on. Until the peaceful ending with the song Nothing Can Stop Us Now, the ride keeps throwing more and more at you. I think any guest in the park should be able to get a real kick out of Mickey and Minnie's because in so many ways, it is an extremely exciting and unique attraction. Number 2, Avatar Flight of Passage at Disney's Animal Kingdom. I struggle to even begin when it comes to talking about this ride, but let me start off by saying that it is one of the most breathtaking rides in the world. The best way I would describe it is something like Soaring around the world but on steroids. This isn't a flying theater either, this is a motion simulator, but a motion simulator taken to the next level at that. The ride begins as you climb atop a Banshee and prepare for a flight over Pandora's otherworldly landscape. Throughout the attraction, you will be exhilarated by the sensation of flight and will be completely immersed in the experiences due to scents, water effects, and you can even legitimately feel the Banshee breathing below your feet. I know the word immersive is used a lot when describing Disney dark rides, but Flight of Passage really has you feeling like you are there and you are flying. So much so that when I got off, I could not walk straight whatsoever. If that's an indicator for how amazing this ride is, then so be it. When visiting Walt Disney World, this should be at the very top of your to-do list, and I completely understand if it's your favorite ride here. But there is one ride in the resort that I consider to be beyond words, more so than any other ride I've ever ridden. So cue the number 1 spot. Number 1, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance at Disney's Hollywood Studios. As with Flight of Passage, I'm overwhelmed with where to begin when talking about Rise of the Resistance. I suppose I won't go too in-depth since I've already done so in my Disneyland Countdown video and various Disney Parks vlogs, but truth be told, this ride is worth all the praise it's received since its opening in 2019 or 2020, depending on where you are. The sheer scale of this ride to me is what's most unbelievable about it. There are so many incredible pre-shows that alone would be worth the wait time by themselves, but then you get to ride the thing, which is unfathomably impressive. The story is amazing, the immersion is amazing, the animatronics are all amongst the best in the world, and the theming literally defines otherworldly. If I could sum up Rise of the Resistance in just one, or I guess in this case 2 words, I'd use sensory overload. Expect your mind to be blown, and that's a promise, because I've never met any theme park fan who has ridden this ride and not come off blown away. With that, I thank you all so much for watching today's countdown video. It was extremely difficult to decide on an accurate ranking for the top 25 best rides at Walt Disney World, but I hope the struggles pay off and that you guys enjoyed the list. If you've been here before, which I'm sure many of you have, feel free to drop your favorite rides list down in the comments below. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, it would mean the world if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. But with that being said, thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.